I'm the Reverend Rachael Hayes, minister of the Unitarian Universalist Society of Amherst. I use she, her pronouns. Welcome to you, old friends and new, young and old, in the Zoom and in the sanctuary. You are an essential part of our celebration today. Whether today is your first or your 1000th Sunday in our midst, we are stronger because you are with us. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing, all learning, all loved. Just as you are welcome here. Today, we're talking about what it means for us to be interdependent, searching for gems of goodness, and thinking about Tet, the Vietnamese Lunar New Year celebration. We'll also share a time of spoken joys and sorrows. You may notice that I take my mask off to speak and put it back on again to sing. Any of our worship leaders who unmask have taken a COVID test this morning. Our congregation has made the choice to prioritize the vulnerable rather than the comfortable with our masking policy. It's part of how we take care of one another.
Our opening words were written by Katie Romano Griffin. She is the senior minister at All Souls Unitarian Church in Indianapolis. Come, let us enter this space of hope and community. Come, let us enter this space with our sorrows, our joys, our passion and compassion. Come, let us enter this space with stories of our ancestors, for their strength and wisdom beats in our hearts. Come into this space. Present to the beloved companions who move beside us. Come into this space, mindful that together we are building a future for other generations. Come into this space and let us worship.
We light this flame to invite a world of peace, where we heal the wounds, where we share what we have with one another, where justice is another word for relationship, and we listen for what love has to say. I invite you to rise, maybe in body, but certainly in spirit, to sing our opening hymn, Building Bridges. And our choir is going to help lead us in this. It's going to be very exciting.
So today, the religious education class is so excited to tell you about our Gems of Goodness project that we're doing in RE. And so Maya is going to tell you a little bit about it, and then I'll invite all of you to help us with it.
Our class is going to spend the next few months talking about stories from around the world that teach important lessons. Each week we'll share what good deeds we have seen or done. 2. After each good deed we share, we put a gem in this jar.
So after each good deed that we share, we are going to put a gem in this jar. But we wanted to give you all the opportunity to put gems in this jar too. So I'm going to have Alexa and Zaya and Maya help me out here. And what we're looking for is good deeds that either you have done or you have seen done this week. So there are some good things that happen in the world, but I'm talking about things that you personally in your real life have seen. And so we don't need everyone, but if there's a couple people who something really, really occurs to them, or if there is a parent here who saw their kid do something especially awesome. Our kids are awesome all the time, but if you saw your kid do something especially awesome this week and you want to recognize that, you are welcome to come on up and share what that good deed was into the mic, and then pick a gem from Maya and put it into the jar that Zaya is holding. Is there anyone who's feeling brave? We have a couple people already.
Hi, my name's Lauren, and when you shared this last week, I had just remembered how good I felt that someone was grateful to me for helping them, someone who needed help, and just appreciated, and I felt like I did something really good.
My name is Anne Louise, and my friend Chris came to stand at a rally for Amherst teachers who are still wanting a contract, and she showed up as a former parent of a former student in Amherst.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Ed, and I'm going to honor some good deeds of my own. I'd like to share with you all that I am speaking by Zoom with healers in both Ukraine and in Moscow on these horrible words, and giving them support and guidance and teachings about how to practice war trauma healing even while these horrors are going on. And these are good people who don't want the wars and are trying to minimize the damage on both sides. So for them and for this important work, I'll put in a gem. Thank you.
I'm wondering, so Alexa's mom couldn't be here, but she wanted to share that yesterday in the car, Alexa, even though she didn't really want to, and to be fair, none of us really wanted to listen to the Thomas the Tank Engine podcast that her brother wanted, she agreed to listen to it and not be grumpy about it. So we really appreciated that. Is there anyone else who would like to share?
My name is Sue Kelly, and I wanted to share an appreciation for our 2 adult children that are managing to stay in touch with us even though they have their own very exciting lives.
So over the next few weeks, we will sometimes have the opportunity again to maybe share any of these gems of goodness that you're seeing in your life. And if there's something you really want to share, you can email me, or you could even come down with us for the very beginning of religious education. And parents are welcome to come down and share something from their children, or anyone in the congregation, really, because the gems of goodness is the very first thing we're going to do when we get downstairs. So with that, I am going to invite all of the children here to gather your things around and head downstairs while the congregation sings us out. Oh, Brenda has something to say.
No, I have something to sing. We're going to sing. Go in beauty, peace be with you, till we meet in our hearts in the light. Go in beauty, peace be with you, till we meet in our hearts in the light.
Well, good morning again. I'm still Ed. Oh, thank you. There, it's me. Thank you, Pete. Well, good morning. So, today is Tet, the Lunar New Year, the first day of the year of either the cat or the rabbit, depending on which Asian country you belong in. Reverend Rachael has invited us to contemplate where, when, and with whom we have experienced beloved communities. So, and today we are focusing on the beautiful quality of interdependence. So I'm happy to share that with all of my 19 healing and reconciliation journeys to Vietnam, and especially on those that I've taken during TED, I've been there for TED 3 or 4 times, I have experienced and become one with interdependent, beloved community in vital, living, passionate, and joyful ways. TED is a week-long celebration. It's our Christmas, New Year's, Easter, Memorial Day, Arbor Day, and numerous other religious and secular holidays, all rolled into one great affirmation of life, love, hope, interconnectedness and longevity. And it's really important that we know this, and especially our veterans, because most of us in America only think of Tet as the horrible battle during the Vietnam War. It's not that. And returning to Vietnam or Asia and learning what Tet really is also discharges this terrible American trauma that our veterans and all of us have. So this wonderful TED experience infects me and all American pilgrims, and especially our veterans who return for healing. Former foes are joyously embraced. They're thanked for coming back and sharing the festival. The Vietnamese ask, we've been your friends since 1975 when the war was over. What took you so long to come back? And they mean it. And our veterans and all of us are adopted and feasted as family members. Tet brings reconciliation, good relations, infuses us with the joy of spring, and puts us in communion with nature and with each other. It truly is the practice of interdependence of all people, all beings, all things. So I'm going to share a poem from my recent book, Coming Home in Vietnam. I was going to present it here last year, but because of COVID, that didn't happen. So instead, we will have a book presentation the last Sunday of February 26th, for this book and my other new one, so please join us then. But I'll just share one poem about interrelatedness in a beloved community. This poem shares one of the experiences I had during a Tet visit in Vietnam. It's written not from my point of view. Imagine the Vietnamese peasant whom we met on Tet. He's talking in this poem, and he's telling the story of our meeting and our entering into healed and beautiful and affirming interrelationship. So it's called Min's house. Min is the name of the Vietnamese gentleman. So imagine him talking and telling this story. The footfalls of the world tramp the mud in my front yard and walk past my small altar to our land god. People smile, they say Xin Chao, they even stop to shake my hand. But you are different. You ask my name, my age, my family. You ask about the war and whether we have survived. And more precious than rice, you ask about the graves beside my little home. I only have this small bit of land. It doesn't matter. My wife, my mother, her mother, my grandmom all sleep here side by side. Those who were and those yet to be are one in us and through us. You Americans, you veterans, you light my incense. You bow and pray to the spirits of those you never knew. You are the first. You are kind. You lift the sorrow from my heart and give me this lucky day. In the smoke of incense and our rising prayers, you and I are also one. So may you be blessed for Tet and always. In Vietnamese, we say, Chok Chakbun Namoy. And the last thing I'll say, and Reverend Rachael will teach us more about interdependence, is we truly are, and healing necessitates interdependence. When we separate and say someone else has the problem, it's an individual pathology, we don't heal. But when we are truly interdependent with each other, veterans and civilians, Americans and anybody else, anywhere around the world, that's when love happens and healing happens, and we can let go of the wounds of the past. So Chakmun Namoy, blessed Tet, happy Year of the Cat and the Rabbit to all of us. Thank you.
2 years, 2 weeks, and 2 days ago, the United States of America watched as a mob overtook the U.S. Capitol building, some intending to stop the certification of the presidential election, and others threatening to hurt or kill our elected officials and the people who work with them if they would not comply. Personally, I was stunned but not surprised after the hints our former president had dropped about a big day on the 6th. I found myself turning to the commentary of Dr. Heather Cox Richardson to help me make sense of the insurrection. I found wisdom to understand the events of those first days of 2021. In the words of a Civil War historian, it makes sense. She is an expert in the tensions in politics that lead to breaking points, that tear our country into factions. Many of you worked for that election result. You sent postcards to voters in significant states reminding them that their vote makes a difference to all of us. Reminding them to verify their voter registration before the election. Our congregational team did this work with Reclaim Our Vote, with inspiration from the UU The Vote project of Side with Love, the political organizing office of the Unitarian Universalist Association. Instead of demanding favorable election results, our congregation and thousands of other Unitarian Universalists partnered with local grassroots organizations to remind people that it matters when they participate in our country's democratic process. Our UUSA The Vote project didn't target political registrations or try to engineer a favorable result. We tried to reach those whose votes were most likely to be suppressed via gerrymandering and voter purges and intimidation. It may be splitting hairs, but we never encouraged the recipients of those postcards to vote a particular way. The organizers we followed set a strategy of bringing as many voters as possible to the polls and trusting that we needed all of us in this political conversation. I offer big thanks to Ann Louise White for being our in-house organizer in this work, and everyone who participated in encouraging and handwriting thousands of postcards to voters. Our UUSA The Vote folks worked really hard in 2020 to make this happen, as well as the big national UU The Vote effort at Side with Love, as well as our grassroots partners in voter-suppressed communities. We needed one another. And we needed one another again in the midterm elections too. It is phenomenal that Georgia broke several records for voter turnout in the November election and again in the runoff election. These organizing partnerships focusing on bringing as many voters as possible to the polls rather than trying to make sure only the right voters go to the polls by suppressing votes were astonishingly successful in numbers, in relationships, and in morale. I would guess that a lot of us love the seventh principle of Unitarian Universalism: respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part. People frequently frame this principle as purely ecological in human impact on the natural world. We can debate whether humans are a keystone species or a hyper-keystone species, but we affect our environment. I'd like to stretch that further and make it explicit that we affect one another. Our human-to-human relationships are shaping the planet and all of our existence as we understand it. It's not possible to leave those who don't agree with us behind and start fresh somewhere else. Like it or not, we are interdependent with everything and everyone. Even those who think we should give in to mob rule, we can't build a wall around the people we don't like or around ourselves and pretend that it won't affect us. We need one another. Approximately 6 months before the insurrection at the Capitol, Seemingly unrelated, even though we know it is all connected, the co-moderators of the Unitarian Universalist Association, Elandria Williams and Mr. Barb Grieve, charged a commission with a regular periodic review of Article 2 of the UUA Bylaws. It's more exciting than that sounds. They charged the commission to make the implicit theology explicit and to ground their work in the love we understand to be the center of our faith. We've been overdue for this review of Article 2, making tiny edits to patch them together, tinkering with our principles and sources, debating on the General Assembly floor who is actually in this circle of love and liberation. Article 2 is where the "who are we" of Unitarian Universalism lives. It's the covenant, it's why we exist, where we come from, and who we hope to be. It's currently where one would look to find the principles and the sources. After 2 years of drafts and feedback sessions with UUs all over the country, the Article 2 Commission gave its report and proposed revision to the UUA Board of Trustees this week. There's a lot to love in it. Strong language that calls us to action, like the purpose of the Unitarian Universalist Association is to actively engage its members in the transformation of the world through liberating love. I'd like to read you section C2.2, which is the values and covenant. As Unitarian Universalists, we covenant. Congregation to congregation and through our association to support and assist one another in our ministries. We draw from our heritages of freedom, reason, hope, and courage, building on the foundation of love. Love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. Inseparable from one another, these shared values are, and then there's an image. This image is of a chalice with an overlay of the word love over the flame, with 6 outstretched arms that create a circle around each of the core values and form a 6-petal flower shape. Each arm is a different color, and clockwise they are interdependence, equity, transformation, pluralism, generosity, and justice. Interdependence. We honor the interdependent web of all existence. We covenant to cherish earth and all beings by creating and nurturing relationships of care and respect. With humility and reverence, we acknowledge our place in the great web of life, and we work to repair harm and damaged relationships. Pluralism. We celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. Justice. We work to be diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all thrive. We covenant to dismantle racism and all forms of systemic oppression. We support the use of inclusive democratic processes to make decisions. Transformation. We adapt to the changing world. We covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. Openness to change is fundamental to our Unitarian and Universalist heritages, never complete and never perfect. Generosity. We cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely and compassionately share our faith, presence, and resources. Our generosity connects us one to another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. Equity. We declare that every person has the right to flourish with inherent dignity and worthiness. We covenant to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities. None of those were my words, but I think most of them were pretty good. I encourage you to read the full document, but the revision and also, I encourage you to read the full document, the revision, but also the rest of the report to the board. For those of you on Zoom, Emma is going to put the link in the chat, and you can click it and read it whenever you like after the service. And I'll send it in the email announcements this coming Friday, or sooner if you send me an email telling me you want it. Honestly, this proposed revision may be contentious among Unitarian Universalists, though the Commission has been profoundly transparent, providing regular updates on social media, soliciting feedback from the public on drafts, and visibly making edits based on the feedback they have received. I still see grumbles on Facebook that it isn't what some of us want, especially because we've called them values instead of principles. It's not a done deal. The board of the Unitarian Universalist Association will hold forums in advance of this June's General Assembly, when delegates from the congregations as well as the UUA board itself can propose revisions to the draft. The General Assembly will vote on the draft and proposed revisions. A majority vote sends the final draft to the 2024 General Assembly for a final vote, which requires a 2/3 majority to make a significant change to our bylaws. We're still in the middle of this work. The work is changing hands from the Commission to the UUA board and the delegates from the congregations at this point. Here we are, asking ourselves, how do we want to be defined? And a dedicated commission has proposed that we define ourselves by love, interdependence, pluralism, justice, transformation, generosity, and equity, and covenant to live into those values. For the ways that we sometimes disagree as Unitarian Universalists about how to do that, I'm not worried, because I know that we need one another, and that's a good thing. I invite you to rise in body and spirit to sing one of my favorite hymns of collective liberation from Jewish cantor Linda Hirschhorn. It's number 155 in the hymnal, and this is a fun one because the altos get the melody. That's not the only reason I love it. It's 155 in the hymnal and on your screen, Circle Round for Freedom. Each of us carries sorrows and are lifted by joys along this path of life. We honor these joys and sorrows in community by speaking them aloud to one another and by holding them in silence in our hearts. Come into this time of compassion. Open your heart. A tune weaves under this moment. I invite anyone bearing a joy or sorrow this morning to come forward and light a candle. I'll light 2 candles to begin. The first for the 50th anniversary of Roe versus Wade, and our commitment to ongoing reproductive justice work in this congregation. And the second candle this morning for the elected leaders, those in our government, those in the Unitarian Universalist Association, and those in our congregational leadership in recognition of the pressure of leading in an interdependent world. Spirit of life, love, and connection, whom some know as God, some know as love, and some know as the sweetness inside the silence. We have come from the many places of our lives to show up to one another. May every hurt be healed. May every sorrow be met with care. May we know that each of us is loved and called to share that love with the world. Blessed be. Amen. From a meditative seat, I invite you to join me in a reflection hymn, number 391, Voice Still and Small. because each week we join together in a practice of building a better world in community. We collect an offering and we split it with an outside organization to help us remember our interdependence, to help us remember that we can't make the world a better place on our own. Half of the money supports the work and witness of our congregation. The other half of the money collected today will support the Local Energy Advocates Project to fund solar-assisted heat pumps for Habitat for Humanity houses here in the Valley. We are honored to share January's offerings with Local Energy Advocates Habitat for Humanity Project. Please give generously today in the basket, by text, by check, or through our website.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
I invite you to say the words to extinguish the chalice along with me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you all for being part of this congregation today. I invite you to rise in body and spirit. Place your hands over your heart or reach out to someone near you and sing our closing song.
I
May the joy and connection you have experienced in this circle carry out into all the places of your life. And may you be filled with love for the coming week. Go in peace.